So here are all the calves in the back. I got a few more over there. But I was saying I got the small calves back here, and I hand-picked a few animals to leave them back here with the calves. And this is actually the animal, that animal right there. You see her? You see her pushing the big animals out the way? Her right there. I actually put her back here because but I mean, some of that is to be expected. All right, the bigger animals will always be pushing the small animals out the way a little bit, and that's just how it works. But I put her back here to be the number one because you can see that she's not too bad about it, right? I mean, she's not following one calf around, and and she's not too bad about it. Some of that is to be expected, but I put her back here so that she becomes the number one for the group. I did that because she is she's a relatively calm animal. She don't like if you're if your number one animal runs away, if you get within a half a field away from the animal, and the animal just goes booking it in the other direction and won't ever come up for the food, and etc., etc., that's not good. The rest of the herd will go running after that animal, and then it just causes a lot of problems. And so I put her in here. I know that she's kind of big compared to the other animals, but I put her back here intentionally with the idea that she was going to become the number one for this set of animals. She's going to become the number one for this set of animals, and it'll she's a very calm animal. All right, she spends a lot of time sleeping. She don't really run around at all. All right, she's very calm. She doesn't she doesn't go running off or nothing. And so I left her back here to be the number one for the group. But these are the calves back here that I got back here. You can see that they're eating the feed, and they're all looking okay. I'm keeping my eyes out to see. I'm keeping my eyes open to see if I see anything going on that's kind of not good. But right now it seems like things are going okay. The animals look like they're doing okay. Everybody's eating, and etc., etc. So the whole thing, and okay, so I figured I would address this right now. The whole thing is that if anything happens, the thing about me is that I tell the truth, right? I sit here and I'm honest about it. I sit here and I tell the truth. If anything happens that I legitimately believe is gonna put me back, whatever, like if I legitimately think, oh, something happened and it's actually put me back 6 months, or it's actually put me back whatever, right? It's put me back this much, and this is how I'm going to work on solving the problem, addressing the issue, etc., etc. If anything like that happens, I will just be flat out honest and I will tell you. But right now things are just still going in the in terms of like an objective metric. The way that I spoke about this was that imagine, okay, so imagine over the course of about and I've been talking about the whole idea of compounding. As of right now, I'm compounding about 20-30%, about 25% growth every month. Let's just say 20%. So I'm compounding 20% growth every month. And when you take a look at that from an objective lens, we're effectively talking about me improving by about 0.5% a day. All right, that's effectively what I'm talking about. But when I use leverage, I mean, it might go up to about 30%. So we're effectively talking about me growing about 1% every day. All right, and then effectively compound that every about 3 months, right? Because it takes me, well, I guess right now it would be whatever, because it takes me some time. I don't technically compound every day because I sell, I've been talking about this, I grew the size of my herd, right? I grew the size of my herd by about 50% over the last 3 months, and over the next 3 months I would anticipate that I grow my herd by another about 30-50%, something like that. I would grow my herd actually by more than 50%. It's going to be about 70%. Something like that, just by taking the money that I make in the cattle business and putting it back into the business, right? And that's effectively what I'm looking to do. That's the direction that I'm going, etc., etc. I've already gave my business plan multiple times. And so the whole idea is like it's like, imagine going up by 1,000% over the course of 2.5 years. and then all of a sudden over 3 days I lose 10%, right? I mean, that's effectively what happened. All right, you know, it's like, imagine having an investment portfolio. The investment portfolio goes up by 1,000% over the last 2.5 years, and then over 3 or 4 days it goes down 10%. It's going to feel catastrophic, but it's not that big of a deal financially. You know, and I talk about this in terms of losing an animal. I don't care about the money, okay? I don't care about the money. You know, the money is whatever. All right, you know, the money is whatever. It doesn't matter. You know, at the end of the day, the thing that I, you know, am most whatever about is that, you know, I lost the animal, right? That's more important to me than any you know, than the money. All right, the money, I don't care about the money. All right, I actually have enough money in the bank account still left over from selling the animals 3 weeks ago to replace the animals. You know, the money doesn't matter to me. All right, and in reality, I mean, even if I didn't have that money, I mean, when you take a look at my business plan, I sold animals 3 weeks ago, and you know, I effectively have 3 herds right now because I increased the size of my herd, and you know, I'll be paying myself every 2 months anyway. Right? What does it matter? Right? It doesn't matter, right? I mean, I'm telling you the truth. You know, this is why I've set up my business like this, right? This is why I run my business the way that I do. You know, the whole idea with my herd right now is that I effectively grew my herd by over 50% in the last, you know, under 3 months, right? I grew my herd by about 70% in the last 3 months, and I have not used practically any leverage. You know, I have not, you know, really used any leverage. You know, I am looking to re-leverage myself, but, you know, that's gonna, you know, I'll be doing that after I buy myself a new piece of land. And so, you know, I'm taking a look at this whole thing, and, you know, because if I leveraged myself right now, I mean, it would get, you know, ballistic. All right, you know, I would have to, you know, I have 50 animals right now, and if I were to leverage today, you know, I would effectively have to start bringing home like you know, like 35 animals every month, because you also have to understand that next month, you know, I'm also paying myself every 2 months. Right? You have to consider that as well. And when I pay myself, I make a net positive, right? I make a net profit. So I pay myself every 2 months. I would have to reinvest that money, leverage against it, and leverage against the number of animals that I have. You see what I'm saying? You know, that's why I'm not leveraging right now, because if I leveraged and I used a little bit of leverage, I would still have to buy like 140 animals in the next 2 months. That's why I'm not leveraging, okay? I am looking to leverage, but I will leverage when it makes sense. All right, and so the whole thing, you know, if anything happens that I legitimately believe has set me back, oh, well, I think it might take me 3 months to solve this, to figure, you know, to get this straightened out. It might take me 3 months. Then I will tell you, my financials are not anywhere close to being the negative. My business, if you think about it from where I started and where I am right now, we're effectively still talking about a 900% growth. That's a very realistic way to look at it. And, you know, my business, the whole thing about my business, and, you know, the whole thing about this right now, you know, because of you know, because I grew the size of my herd, I am not paying myself once every 3 months. I am paying myself once every 2 months. Right? And by next month, I will be paying myself again. And when I pay myself, I make a pretty substantial net profit. I will actually probably make enough money to buy, you know, an extra, just by taking the money from my cattle business and putting it back into my cattle business. You know, I would say that I probably have 15 or 20 animals ready for sale. And when I sell those 15 or 20 animals, I will probably make enough money to buy like you know, 35 animals, a load of grain, and a load of fertilizer. I probably will, okay? Something like that. 30 animals and 2 loads of grain and a load, you know, something like that. All right, you know, and so I'm not, you know, the whole thing about this, you know, and if something happens that legitimately puts me, like, sets me back 3 months, then I will tell you. All right, I'm not gonna lie about it. The whole thing about it is I tell the truth, because you know, I've always said the thing about the truth is that, you know, the truth, if nothing else, there was honesty, you know, there was virtue in honesty, right? I mean, at least I'm telling the truth, right? And I talk about this stuff all the time, like, you know, like me, the whole thing about, you know, the whole stuff, you know, the whole thing about this, and, you know, and everything in terms of its entirety, is like, if I was told this, because here's one of the, I think that this is something that a lot of people don't talk about. And I think that this is this is very important, because this happens to a lot of people. If you go and right now and you look into it, you will find people all over the place that this is effectively happening to, and it's not a good situation. All right, because it's practically like you're permanently finished forever. You're effectively never going to make it out, effectively. All right, and that is realizing that you're useless at 30 years old. That is like one of the most it happens to a lot of people, right? It happens to a lot of people. You can go on the internet right now and it's like, oh my God, you find a 30-year-old woman or a 30-year-old man, and it's like, oh my God, I feel like my life is going nowhere, et cetera, et cetera. Oh my God, I did I did everything that I was told to do, and now my life is going nowhere. Oh my God, I'm 30 years old and I want at least 2 kids. I don't even have a boyfriend. Right? I mean, and it's like, and that happens to a lot of people, a majority of people. And then I feel like that's the first step into becoming, effectively just, going downhill forever. All right. You don't want to end up in that situation. All right. And, and I've talked about this in terms of, because the thing about one of the big advantages of being 30, 30, 35, something like that, is that effectively your brain has fully developed. All right, chances are you're not some, and I've always said that one of the big benefits of, being, 15 and stuff like that, one of the big benefits of even being younger than that is that your brain is growing and you're effectively a sponge. All right, you could learn how to do anything, legitimately. Like if you have an average IQ 5-year-old child, that child can learn how to do anything, legitimately anything. Even, running cattle, whatever, because when you're 5, when you're 15, you don't really have like these whatever, right? Like like you have to go out, and if you don't make it, then you're effectively just left for dead by the world, right? Because I mean, effectively you don't have that, right? And so because because the thing about, like, imagine my situation. What if I, because I've always said, imagine what if I started doing stuff that poor people do, right? Oh my God, all I need is some help. Oh my God, if someone just helped me, then I could make it too, right? That's something that poor people do. Nobody helps me, all right? I'm not going to say nobody helps me, but practically nobody helps me. I legitimately do like 99.999% of this by myself. All the time. All right, and I've talked about this. If you cannot do it, then you're effectively boned. That's what it comes down to when doing something like this, because opinions don't mean anything. All right, opinions don't mean anything, and I don't know how else to put it. Go out and do it for yourself and see how it turns out. All right, so, this stuff is not some Disneyland adventure, okay? It's not some Disneyland journey. Stuff like this, you have to work on it for a very long time. All right, and as far as I know, I am the only one on the planet that effectively can do something like this, as far as I know. If you legitimately know somebody that, it's like I know a guy, it's like if you just left him in Central Texas by himself, and you came back and you found him 6 months later, you found him 1 year later, he would have just started himself a legitimate cattle business that makes a large amount of profit. If you know somebody else that can do it, then let me know. Because that's effectively the situation that I'm in. And I was like, the whole thing about this, and I give very realistic, because the whole thing about this is that, people, you will be fed the Kool-Aid your entire life. All right, chances are you will. All right, you'll be, whatever, you'll be fed the Kool-Aid your entire life. You'll be fed the punch your entire life. And, by the time you realize that you're being fed the Kool-Aid, or it's whatever, right? And why do I say things? Why do I tell you things like like for me to fertilize this 10.5 acre field, and when I fertilize this 10.5 acre field properly, I can run about 3 to 4 animals per acre, 500-pound animals per acre, 24/7. And it costs me about $350. Why, why do I say things like that? Because that is the truth. I am giving you my numbers, real life numbers. I actually do this stuff in real life. You know, when I talk about the idea of making money, when I talk about the idea of making large amounts of money, right? You know, the amount, you know, whatever, you know, let's say that, you know, for me to make for me to make whatever, you know, the money, you know, why do I say things like that? Because it's very practical. It's very practical. You know, if you can practice for free, like legitimately, let's say that you're sitting anywhere right now and you have, you know, you have the internet. You can go on Facebook Marketplace right now and you can find yourself a lease property. Find yourself one. It might take 3 months. It might take 2 months. You can find yourself a lease property right now and run cattle on it. Start yourself a little side hustle. Teach yourself how to farm. And even if you failed, right, if you followed the whole thing, the whole plan idea, right, and when I give you this plan and when I give you this idea, you have to understand that I am doing it with the utmost sincerity. I am legitimately giving you the best information that I can. I'm not looking to give you the wrong information. And at the end of the day, I am giving it away for free. Because why not? I already make plenty of money. All right, you know, I make so much money running cattle that I actually make more money than anybody on the planet. And over the next 6 months, my financials are going to go astronomical. I would be willing to bet. Over the next 6 months, my financials are going astronomical. All right, and I give you this information for free, and I'm giving you the best information that I can. If you find, you can go on Facebook Marketplace right now and find yourself a lease property. You can. They're all over the place. All right, and then if you have yourself a lease property and you grow some grass on it, you go out there and you take a look at your field and you grow some grass on it. All right, let's just say that you're just going to grow hay. You know, I've always said that focus on growing the grass first, all right? Because if you do not grow grass, what is going to happen? You are going to have to rely on the commodity markets to raise your animals. All right, and if you have to rely on the commodity markets all the time to raise your animals, there is a very realistic possibility that you get hit by the double whammy and then you just end up losing, you know, you just end up losing money. All right, you know, when you grow grass, you are no longer reliant on the commodity markets to feed your animals. That's the big benefit. Even if cattle prices fall, you're not really even in any hot water. Because what does it matter? You're growing the food for them. It doesn't matter. You're putting the poundage on them for a very, very low cost. And what is the cost? For me to run about 35 animals. For me to run 35 500-pound animals. 30 to 35 500-pound animals on this 10.5 acre field and legitimately feed them a buffet. Leave them on grass all the time. It costs about $350 a month, 8 months out of the year. That's what it costs me. All right, and you know, and I'm giving you my numbers. You know, I'm giving you my numbers. I am telling you I actually do this stuff in real life, and I'm giving you my numbers. All right, you know, the whole thing about business is that the entire point of, you know, is to make a positive return, right? The money that I need for my business comes from my business. I legitimately make more money farming than anybody on the planet makes doing just about anything, and it's by a massive margin. I am telling the truth, right? And it's like if you find yourself a lease property and you grow some grass on it, even if you mess it up, you're out, what, $500? What does it matter? Try it again. Right? Keep trying. Make sure you're going in the right direction, right? Don't you know, throw a pissy fit and quit. All right, because chances are you're going to have to work on it for you may have to work on it every day for the next 15 years of your life. You know, oh my God, the fertilizer didn't grow anything. Fertilizer must not work. When in reality, you should take a look at your situation. I have already shown you what is possible. I've already shown you why you should fertilize your grass. And I've even told you exactly how fertilizer works. It's like food for your plants. And chances are, if you fertilized your field and it didn't grow anything, that you used the wrong fertilizer. All right, when I fertilize my grass and when I grow my grass, it costs me about $350 worth of fertilizer 8 months out of the year, and I legitimately grow enough grass to feed about 30 to 30, 30 to 4, something like 35, 400, 500-pound animals 24/7. And the grass will actually grow faster than the animals can eat it. All right, if you start going in the wrong direction, because chances are what's actually going to happen is you're going to go, oh my God, fertilizer didn't work. Right, fertilizer didn't work, and you're gonna go, oh my God, and then you're gonna go and you find somebody and they also tell you that fertilizer doesn't work, and then now you're all sitting there in this moron megazord, right? You're all part of the moron megazord, and now nobody's gonna get anywhere. If anything, everybody's just gonna hold each other down, and everyone's gonna become a net negative. Fertilizer does work. If you do not fertilize your grass, and if you do not fertilize it properly, if you do not fertilize your crops properly, your crops will not accumulate any biomass. All right, as long as you have the right information and you are going in the right direction and you are actually putting in the work, then, it's like, even if you, whatever, right? Let's say that you go and you get yourself a lease property and you decide that you're going to grow some grass on it. You're going to figure out the grass situation, and, if you have some decent biomass accumulation, you'll just go and buy some cattle, and then you'll put some cattle on it, right? Put them on the right medications, make sure that they're doing okay, make sure that you're not having any acidosis, etc., checking your animals for health problems, etc. And then you put them out on the grass, and they eat the grass, and they harvest the grass for you, right? And then you can just sell your animals, and you might even make a small profit. All right, you might even be able to make a small profit, and then you can practice for free. You can practice for free, and why not? Right, and then you can learn how to farm, because that's the most important thing. Is that when it comes to something like this, actually learning how to do the work and actually learning how to do it properly is very important. All right, because if you have the wrong information, if you do not go the right way, then you're effectively not going to get any of the results. And in a potential situation, you will even become a net negative. You will start telling other people that it's not possible. All right, let me go into moron megazord myself. Let me go into it's gonna make me feel better if I can get more people to agree with me. Oh my God, it's not possible. It's not possible. I used fertilizer and it didn't work either. Oh my God, sell barn cattle, you can't make any money on them. Right, and then now you have a bunch of people that everyone is just walking around going to get, oh my God, you can't make any money on sell barn cattle. Oh my God, you can't, fertilizer doesn't do anything, and all these just worthless things, right? Everybody is effectively just becoming a net negative. All right, and I've shown you that it's possible, okay? I've shown you that it's possible. I tell you that it's possible. I give you very realistic ways to do things. Because the whole thing, but I think that's one of the most, a lot of people, I see it happen all the time, right? I mean, you see it all over the place. I mean, you've effectively become, when you, because it's whatever, right? And then now you're 30, and you've realized that you're useless. And then over the next 15 years of your life, you just kind of slowly go downhill and then for all of eternity, you just kind of slowly go downhill. You don't ever work on doing any better for yourself, and all sorts of problems, right? And, you don't want to end up like that. All right. You don't want to end up like that. All right, you want to work on doing better for yourself. All right, find something that you understand. Go and do it. And when I give you my information, I'm giving you the best information that I can. You can go on Facebook Marketplace right now. You can find yourself a lease property, farmland for lease. You can lease that property, whatever, talk to the owner about it. Offer, but you should probably not offer a dividend, because if you don't know what the heck you're doing, you're not going to be able to pay anything. Right, I mean, offer a flat fee. All right, ask them what they want, and then offer them, offer them their rate. All right, and then when they ask you what you're gonna do, you never talk about your dream. Oh my God, well, it's my dream to become a farmer. What do you tell them? I'm gonna go and I'm gonna fertilize your field, and once I grow some grass, I will put some cattle on it. Even if you have zero idea of what you're gonna do, just tell them that, because at least you're going in the right direction. All right, you don't say, oh my God, well, it's been my dream to become a farmer, so I want to lease your land. All right, you don't ever offer your dreams, right? This is what I talk about. You don't ever offer your dreams to anybody ever. Nobody cares about your dreams. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you never offer your dream. Me and my buddy pals are gonna go on a magical adventure together. You don't ever offer things like that. All right, what do you offer a clear set idea, this is exactly the direction that I'm going. I would anticipate that I make this much money. If you're going to talk to a banker, the banker or the whatever, it depends. All right, if you're going to talk to an owner about leasing a property for farmland, all right, tell them I will fertilize your field, and then I will grow some grass, and then I will put some cattle on it. Tell them that, even if you have no idea what you're doing. All right, and then go out there and and why not, right? Even if you mess it up, you'll lose what, $500? What does it matter? Even if you mess it up and the owner says you're an idiot and kicks you off the field, the fertilizer, it didn't, whatever, right? And the whole thing about fertilizer, it's like if you're looking to grow grass and you're putting fertilizer on your grass, and and it's not growing, and 2 weeks later you should be able to take a look at your grass and realize that it's not growing very well, and then you can re-diagnose your problem, think about the issue, and then re-fertilize it. All right, even if you mess it up completely, I mean, you'll lose what, $1,000? What does it matter? And you should not be messing it up completely. All right, you should not be messing it up completely. You should at least be going in the right direction, right? I've always said that in terms of grasses, the metabolic, the metabolization of minerals is about a 513. If you have a soil pH over, if you have a high soil pH like I do, like 7.5, the only minerals that are, responsible for raising the pH of your soil are effectively calcium, magnesium, potassium, and salt. If you go across the field and you diagnose your plant material and you find a clover plant that is showing a sign of phosphorus deficiency, and then chances are, if you also have a phosphorus deficiency and a nitrogen deficiency, right? If you walk across the field and you take a look at a clover plant, and I've always said that phosphorus deficiencies are very easy to spot because they will legitimately turn your plant red. If you have a plant that is turning red, it probably has a phosphorus deficiency. Granted that, like, the plant is not dying. If everything is just, if the plant has some water and the plant has some sunlight and the plant is not like at its end stage of development of growth, it should not be turning red. If your plant is turning red, it has a phosphorus deficiency. And when you are looking at a clover plant, that clover plant, the whole thing about legumes is that they interact with a bacteria called Rhizobacter. And Rhizobacter will actually inoculate the root of the plant. And when they inoculate the root of the plant will feed the bacteria carbohydrates, and in return, the bacteria will feed the plant atmospheric nitrogen. So your plant is effectively, creating its own nitrogen. So if you have a plant that is creating its own nitrogen, and it has a phosphorus deficiency, when you reasonably deduce this idea, it will turn into, if you correct the phosphorus deficiency, you will probably end up with a nitrogen deficiency. And if you take a look at a field let's say that, like, we take a look at my field, and I say I have a 7.5 pH, and I also know that, when I correct these nutrient deficiencies, I actually end up with a little bit of a potassium deficiency. And so I take a look at this data, right? I take a look at this information. I have a 7.5 pH, and I take a look at my field, right? And I take a look at my plant. I take a look at a broadleaf plant, and I take a look at this plant, and I have taken a look at this plant, and I have discovered that, with everything just kind of being, the weather is okay, the water, the weather's okay, the plant's got some water, and it's still showing signs of having, a discoloration on the new growth, then it's probably a sulfur deficiency. Because the only two, not the only two, the major two deficiencies in terms of the new growth, when you take a look at the new growth of a plant, there are, the two major immobile nutrients are calcium and sulfur. Those are the two major immobile nutrients. All right, so if you look at a plant and the new growth of the plant is showing signs of some sort of like discoloration, like it is having some sort of like it's losing its color. When that happens, there are only really two major, and the whole thing, there are only really two major, minerals that can really cause that. Granted that, you don't have some, micronutrient deficiency. The thing about micronutrients is I just put micronutrients across my field one time every year, and then I just call it a day, and I haven't had any problems with it. Okay, I have them added to my my fertilizer when I go to the fertilizer yard, and then I just put it across my field. Okay, and so but chances are it's either calcium or it's sulfur, and if you have a soil pH of 7.5, it's probably sulfur. Very, it's not confusing. All right, you only really have two minerals that can cause that can really cause a, granted, etc. the micronutrients. I put micronutrients across my field once a year. Okay, and so but really there's only there's only really two minerals that can cause a improper growth in the new leaf material, and that is calcium and sulfur. All right, and if you have a soil pH of 7.5, it's probably not calcium. All right, so but all of this stuff, the whole thing about all of this is that this is because here's the thing, right? And I talk about and I know I say this all the time, but I actually do this stuff in real life, right? I actually do this stuff in real life. I'm not, I fell out of heaven to seven, and my life's a magical journey. I'm not, I actually do this stuff in real life. And when you take a look at it for what it is, in terms of using money as a gauge, because money is not everything, but, realistically, we can use it as a gauge for something like this. I effectively have some of the best financials on the entire planet. I legitimately have some of the best financials on the entire planet. All right, I make more money running cattle in my backyard than effectively anybody on the planet makes doing just about anything, and it's by a massive margin. All right, and the thing, I am legitimately telling you how I do all of this stuff for free, and I'm giving you the best information that I can. And at the end of the day, if you legitimately, which I would be, if you went and you double checked all of my information, I would be very happy for you. That's very good. Why not? Right? Go and figure this stuff out for yourself. I go on Google Scholar and look up some, start reading some stuff, right? Go out into the world and start putting in some effort. All right, go and read some books. Go and get yourself a lease property. Go and start putting in some effort. Go out and actually do something with yourself, right? That would be incredible. Why not? Because the thing about this stuff is it's whatever, right? I mean, I talk about this in terms of a realistic perspective. Even if I increased the success rate by 1,000%, I mean, we would still only be in a situation where maybe 10 people on the planet can do something like this. I'm not going to say can, but we'll actually go and do something like this. Because, if you have average IQ, you can more or less do 98% of this. All right, if you went and you put in enough practice and you put in enough effort, and you had the right information, and you started to see this stuff in real life, you could do 90. The average person could do 98% of this. If you have 100 IQ, you could do 98% of this. The only thing is that it's going to take a long time. All right, it's going to take a long time, and it's going to take a lot of effort. At the end of the day, your opinions aren't going to get anything for you. Nobody cares about your opinion. All right, at the end, I actually do this stuff in real life. And when you take a look at what I do, and then you look at it in terms of money, I legitimately have some of the best financials on the entire planet. And but between now and the end of the year, in the next 6 months, I've been talking about this for a long time, and it's still happening. It's still, it's still more or less, whatever, right? Still on track. Between now and the end of the year, my financials will go astronomical. My financials will go astronomical, and if anything changes along the way, I will let you know. I will legitimately just state it. I will say that something happened and it put me back maybe 3 months. Maybe it put me back, whatever, right? It put me back, 5 months, 4 months, whatever. I will tell you, and then I will say, this is, whatever. This is still the direction that I'm going. All right, if something happens along the way, I will legitimately tell you. But as of right now, I am still on track. Between now and the end of the year, my financials will be going vertical. Will be going astronomical. All right, and just another way to take a look at this is that, I've sold animals 3 weeks ago, right? I sold animals 3 weeks ago. Was it 3 weeks? Was it a month? Something like that. I sold animals a month ago, something like that. Oh, it's been a month because I sold them at the beginning of last month. So it's been a month, all right? It's already, I forgot, it's actually a new month. I thought it was the end of last month, but it's already a new month. And so, I will be selling another set of animals in the next month, right? The whole thing is that, think about it like 3 separate herds, right? I have 2 stabilized herds and I have an unstabilized herd. That's effectively the most reasonable way for me to look at it. Before I did that, I had two separate herds, but now I have 3 because the number of animals I have has increased, right? And so instead of paying myself every 3 months, I will be paying myself every 2 months. All right, and so I will be paying myself again next month. And when I pay myself next month, I will have a set of stabilized animals. These animals, I am looking to stabilize all of these animals in the next month, okay? These animals here right now, I'm looking to stabilize them over the next month. And, I still have some money left in my bank account from selling the animals a month ago. And I'll have to reinvest all of that money, which I probably won't be able to do. I'm going to deleverage myself, okay? I will be deleveraging myself and et cetera, and then I will re-leverage myself, et cetera. But but long story short, all right, in terms of the macro idea, in terms of the bigger idea, right, I understand that there are things that I need to do along the way in terms of things that need to get accomplished along the way. But in terms of the bigger idea, I am still heading in the right direction. All right, I'm not, I didn't, whatever, right? I didn't derail myself, right? That's the whole thing. Don't ever put yourself in a situation where you are risking losing money. All right, the whole idea of a balance sheet, appraising a balance sheet, right? Appreciating the assets knowledgeably. Don't ever, take yourself over a 100% leverage, stuff like that. All right, the reason that those guidelines are put in place is so that I don't risk ever losing money. And I haven't even gotten close to losing money. Realistically, in the next month, I will be selling about 15-20 cattle. And when I sell those 15-20 cattle, I will make enough money to buy like 30, 35, and another load of grain and a load of fertilizer. I will legitimately still be growing my business by about 70% in the next 3 months. Something like that. Granted that I have the summer coming up, and in the summer, I won't really be growing my business. I'll be shrinking my business intentionally. And when I do that, I'll have my balance sheet and everything, and then I'll go to the bank and I will leverage it. But that's effectively, sometime between now, between now and the end of the year, in terms of just a realistic sense, my financials will be going vertical. All right, but I'm already in a situation where I don't even worry about money anymore. And but the amount of money that I'm making on this cattle business will go absolutely astronomical. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. All right, that's effectively what's going to happen. I will just take the money that I'm making from my business and put it back into my business. My cattle business will be going absolutely astronomical. All right, sometime between now and the end of the year, and if anything changes, I will legitimately tell you that something has changed. Maybe I need an extra 3 months, maybe I need an extra 4 months, maybe I can even do it sooner. If something changes, I will tell you. All right, but just know that between now and the end of the year, my cattle business will be going vertical. We'll go absolutely astronomical. All right, that's effectively the direction that I'm going. I've already said, I understand what's happening. And just a realistic way to put this into perspective is that I actually make more money running cattle in my backyard than anybody on the planet makes doing just about anything, and it is by an astronomical margin. Legitimately, I actually do this stuff in real life. All right, just to put it all into perspective. I effectively have some of the, this business right here is effectively some of the best financials on the entire planet. What I achieved in my backyard with my cattle business has effectively, is some of the best numbers on the entire planet, and I am not lying about it. Sometime between now and the end of the year, my cattle business will go absolutely astronomical. And it is what it is, all right? At the end of the day, I legitimately worked for it. I'm not making this up. This is not fake, right? I'm not, these cattle are not fake, right? I worked for it, and it's like, and at the end of the day, I've always, if you want to know what it was like, then go and do it. All right, that's the whole thing about this situation. And as far as I know, I may be the only person on the entire planet that can do something like this. Not can, but legitimately does actually put themselves to do something like this. I may be the only person on the entire planet. I'm not going to say can, because it's like, if you took an average person and and you just worked on it for the next 15 years of your life, and you worked on it 7 days a week, and you went in the right direction, and then effectively anybody can do 98% of this stuff. It's just going to take a long time. My results are, I effectively have some of the best results in the world. Legitimately. I actually do this stuff in real life, right? I'm not making this up. My cattle are not fake. My grass is not fake. My business is not fake. I'm not, whatever. I fell out of heaven at 7 and my life's a magical journey. I actually managed to do it. Right? I mean, that's the whole thing about my situation. I actually do this stuff in real life, all right? And that's it for me today, YouTube. You have a good one.